Ladies and gents, welcome back to another Engineers podcast. Today I'm joined by Zach Lloyd, founder and CEO of Warp. Warp are on a mission to help devs ship more software quickly. Simply put, reimagining the command line terminal and code editor. Today we're going to unpack how Zach's built Warp, launching their first version in 2022, launching the agent mode in 2024, to today. And of course, we're going to be uncovering some engineering challenges, what it's like to compete in a market with other dev tools, and much, much more. Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Pleasure. We always start with intros. So I'm keen to get a sense for a few minutes on your background. Who's Zach? Where does he come from?
Yeah, so my background, I'm an engineer. I've been an engineer for most of my career. My passion is building really interesting hard software. I like building things that are going to be impactful to a lot of different people. So before Warp, I was a principal engineer at Google. I used to run engineering on the Google Docs and Google Sheets teams. And yeah, my goal is to make it easier to bring that kind of software, so software that might like be pinned as a Chrome tab or live in your Mac dock, into the world. So that's me in a nutshell.
Love it. Tell us a little bit about Warp and what you're building.
Yeah, so Warp is a developer tool startup. Our mission, like you said at the top, is to help developers ship better software more quickly. We're building what I call an agentic development environment. So it's something where you as a developer can simply ask your computer to build things for you, and it will build them. But it can do more than that. So it can set up your projects, it can write your code, it can fix issues in production. And the way to think about it is it's grown out of the terminal. So Warp's history is as a reimagination of the way the terminal worked, and it has a lot of the same features of the terminal, and you can use Warp's ADE as a terminal if you want. But the distinct thing is, instead of just typing terminal commands into Warp, you can also prompt it in English or natural language. And when you do that, it launches an agent. And that agent, because of where the terminal sits in the developer stack, it can do almost anything. So it's a very, very powerful place to be. And it's, it's something that's helping developers as we shift from developing by hand to developing by prompt.
I'm keen to get into the idea of where the idea of Warp actually started and where you saw this pattern emerge, because we are going to be talking about playing in a competitive field, but I'm keen to understand that idea and how you've put that idea into practice for other founders or builders maybe in their spare time to learn about the mindset.
Yeah, so the genesis of Warp predates LLMs. So, we started 5 years ago, which is relatively old for a startup at this point. And the original thesis behind the company was that there is a tool that developers live in. It's one of the two most important tools that developers use. It's the terminal and the code editor, the two big ones. And the terminal as a product, in my opinion at least, is pretty bad. It's something that's people really struggle to learn how to use. Even if you're like an experienced developer like I was, it's not something I enjoyed using. I was constantly forgetting commands. I never learned that, I never set it up to a crazy degree. And it's something, if you wanted to get good at it before Warp, you really had to put in a ton of work. And I'm pretty lazy. And my goal was how do you unlock the power of this tool? Because it's really, really powerful, but not make people have to work so hard to get that power. So that was the vision. And then from a business perspective, the idea was, we're not totally actually sure what the business is going to be, honestly, but this is a valuable piece of real estate, was kind of our instinct. If you have something that every developer uses every day, that's not a very good product. The we just had confidence that if you could meaningfully improve that product, we would have a way to build a good business around it. The original business concept was more around collaboration in the terminal, which is still part of what Warp offers. So think of like Postman. I don't know if you know that tool, but it's like the ability to sort of share terminal command snippets, share environment variables, that type of thing. And that's cool. But what's actually transformed Warp and made it into a business with very, very fast revenue growth at this point is the emergence of LLMs, which we didn't predict. So in that sense, we got lucky. But I think if we want to take some credit, it's that we like put ourselves in a good piece of real estate in which to get lucky. And so, yeah, that's like the quick origin of how we got going.
It is pretty astonishing, but tell us about the figures.
Yeah, so now we've been growing recently. We're adding like $1 million every week ish, something like that, in new net ARR, which again, just to give a sense of this, like we were at like $1 million of ARR in April or something like that total. And so now, we're adding that amount, every, like let's say approximately every week or something like that. And the growth has been accelerating. And it just speaks to just very, very high demand in the market that we're in. It's really a transformational experience. It's transformational both for people who don't know how to code. And so you hear a lot about this with vibe coders, and that's actually not the market that we're going for. But there are people who don't know how to code who will use Warp to build something, which is cool. And then it's transformational, but for professional developers, but that's actually harder. It's harder to get to a spot where a professional can actually use these tools. Like, I'm not sure how much you're following it, but there's a bunch of studies showing, agentic development tools can actually cause problems. They can cause code that developers don't understand. They can create security issues. And so the most interesting thing to me, product wise, and the thing that we're focusing on at Warp is like, how do you help developers who are working on like the hardest software, the most impactful software, actually apply these tools? And it's like, it's a more challenging problem for sure than the like, how do you help someone build a website with these tools, which is like, I think pretty tractable.
Yeah, 100%. You'd only have to look at Lovable, Replit, many others to know some of the tools that are out there, and people are obviously publishing figures. Talk about the niche of the market in terms of helping developers solve really hard problems. How do you think you go about doing that? Talk to us about that.
So I would say we're not competing for the same people as like Replit or Lovable, or at least we have some of them, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to build a product where if you're a pro developer working on a like established code base that might be pretty big, that you can use Warp to effectively like work much faster or increasingly just like automate parts of your work. From a product perspective, the way that we do that, it's all about like, how do you help developers understand what agents are doing? How do you help them guide what agents are doing? How do you help them code review and basically take ownership of the code that the agents created? And if you think about the process that's needed for that, it's like, you as a pro developer, what you probably shouldn't be doing right now is just telling an agent to build a feature and describing the feature from the user's perspective. If you do that, what you may find is that the agent like will run for a long time, and it might like get to the outcome that you want, but the actual way that it's built it might cause bugs in your code. It might cause security holes. It might just cause tech debt. It might waste a lot of time. It might waste a lot of tokens. And so what you should really do is follow a process more like where you work with the agent to understand the problem. You work with the agent to map out the solution space. You agree with the agent on like a plan of attack. Then when the agent starts going, you don't just like step away and go for a swim or whatever. Like, you probably want to sit there and almost pretend like you're pairing with the agent for now. You code review the agent's code. And so we built features into Warp for all this stuff, like for planning and even for code review. Like, I think that's actually a really big kind of overlooked feature. Like, what you do these days as a developer is you code review an agent's code. That's like a big part of your job. And then you have to take the outcome of whatever you built with the agent and feed it back into context so that the next person on your team or the next time you work on a problem, the agent is a little bit smarter. So it's a much tighter loop, in my opinion, that if you're a pro developer, you want to be following. Um, and look, I think that this will change over time as the models improve and the way that you get context into the models improve. But the state of the art today, even with the best models and the best tools like Warp, is that you really should be paying very, very close attention to what the agent is doing if you want to get something that you can merge all the way from prompt to production.
Love it. I want to talk about where we might be going in the future. Obviously, we do need to go into the models part, which we will. I want to come back to something that is transformational that you spoke to, and it's not just about revenue since April, but there's been this transitional period with the business where you have built some real good real estate, but it's taken some pivots in 2022, 2024 to today. I think they're really good lessons for people to listen to, that success isn't just as linear as, yep, we're here now, we're posting $1 million net revenue per week. It's taken some time to get there. Help us understand that journey, that transition, and some lessons.
Yeah. So if you're a founder listening to this, first off, startups are super hard. I'm sure you already know that if you're founding something. It's very rarely a straight line from like your idea to like success. Even now, like, it's not like we're like Warp. It's just a new set of challenges for us. It's challenges around scaling, challenges around costs, challenges around hiring. So I don't think it actually gets easier. Um, for our particular journey, like, we had an idea that was kind of half right, I think. It was the half that was right is that this is an important piece of real estate that's been overlooked. The half that was like unknown or not right was like, how are we going to build a business off of this? And so the important thing is like, don't like over anchor on your original concept. Don't be precious about your original idea. Like, you have to observe what's happening in the world and the market, and every week, really, like all the time, you just have to be reevaluating if what you're doing is the smartest thing to be doing at that moment. So we have 4 core values at Warp, and one of those values is like humility. And the idea is like, we just need to have a learning mindset. Startups are so hard. The default state of them is that they're going to fail. And, to the extent that we've done things well, which there's certain things we've done well, there's certain things we've like screwed up. I do think we've done a pretty good job of adjusting and seeing that there's this new transformational technology that applies super well to what we were building and moving like relatively quickly to make it a core part of what we were doing.
Talk us through that moment, because I'm keen to unpack that, where you're seeing a technology evolution. You think you have a very fixed mindset in terms of the product that you're building, and on that journey, how do you get in a room and assess this new piece of technology and go, yeah, we do actually need to start building in that direction. We do need to do that right now, without looking at what you've already built going, shit, what are we going to do with that?
Yeah, so it's an awesome question. I'll give some credit to one of the engineers on our team, actually, Kevin, who he, even before LLMs came out, he was like sort of like enthusiastic about what AI could do for Warp, and he built in like his spare time. I want to say he did it either a hackathon or on a weekend. He built this thing into Warp, which would take you could take English and translate it into command. So it wasn't an agent, like you couldn't tell it to accomplish a task, but you could be like, what's the find command for recursively searching for Python files and like, you know, running this grep thing on them or whatever. And that was our first AI thing. And it was in, I want to say 2022, maybe. It was like using an early version of the OpenAI Codex API. And so we were like on the fringes of it, AI early. When AI started coming out, I think honestly, it was so obvious that it applied to what we were doing that we were like fairly fast, meaning like the biggest challenge to using the terminal is knowing what all the commands are. And there was just this obvious technology now where you could just ask it how to do things and it could tell you the command. So we did a chat panel on the side of Warp very quickly. I want to say we did that right after we launched that within like a month of ChatGPT coming out. So actually pretty good velocity there. But it took us like some time to be like, oh, our whole product needs to be this. And it took us some time to realize that the chat panel was like a stupid approach for us. Like the right approach was like just make the main interface into the terminal the thing that you talk to. Um, and like we I don't think we grasped immediately the rate of improvement of the models. Like it took us like a couple, like going from like what was it, GPT 3.5 to 4, and then Sonnet 3.5 for us to realize, oh, the slope of improvement on these models is such that you're going to be able to do your entire coding workflow through just like an agent. Probably took us a couple months longer to realize that than it should have. But then we made a decision. I don't know. We made a decision in 2024 where it was just like, okay, this is what the product is, and we're like lucky that most of what we've built works for this, and that some of what we had built, which was more around like the collaboration part of Warp, we're just like, it's not as important. We started to take it out of the app a little bit and deprioritize it, which was hard because it's like there's this sunk cost feeling. Anyone who's built something that they feel like they've invested a ton in, it's like, well, I built it, must be useful. Users must use it. I don't know. We were just like, it's go time. There's a better thing, which was hard, but I think we did a pretty good job just being like, got to go to where the demand is. And then once you start seeing some demand, once you start seeing people pay you for this stuff, it becomes much easier to focus on it than when you're in like the wilderness of like, are they gonna like exploring what someone might pay for?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think the curiosity, the then conviction, and the knowing actually this needs to be our product. And you gave the example of like removing the chat panel element. So just moving in the direction that the technology and maybe even where Kevin's Inception started, right thing to do. And obviously the model evolvement, and we're going to touch on that. What do you think has contributed to the success over the last 6 months? Because the last 6 months is astronomical.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's for us specifically, it's a few things. So we went into the coding market is one thing. So for a long time, not a long time, but like for a period, we were known as like the AI terminal. And some people still will think of us as that. And if you think of us as the AI terminal, you think of like, well, how does AI apply to terminal actions? And you're like, how do I use AI to do Git? Or how do I use AI to do Docker? And that's valuable, by the way. And it's still like, it's an awesome thing that we have. We're the best at that. But where most of the demand is in the software world is like, can your AI code? And not just can it code, can it do all the things that are related to code? Can it understand your code? Can it answer questions about code? If you have a production failure, it needs to be able to look up in code and understand where that code is. And so when we decided to go all in on code, it just took us much more to where the center of the market was. And then we did a good job at it. Like when we launched our repositioning as an agentic development environment in June, we launched as the number one agent on Terminal Bench, which is one of the two benchmarks, and we were a top 5 agent on Sweetbench. And so we could back up our claims of being a good coding agent with some real data. Um, and just like changing that perception, and we can see it in our cohort data. Like every new cohort that comes into Warp is more likely to see us as a coding platform than just as a terminal. And coding is something that people want to pay for, and so that was a big thing for us. The second big thing was the world shifted towards terminals, which again was, you could think of it as lucky. Like, and we could thank some of our competitors here, like Claude Code or Gemini CLI or Codex CLI. People started to realize that the interface of the terminal, of the command line, is like the better interface for doing agentic work than the IDE. And like, I think at this point, the IDE is going to be an irrelevant tool. I think that the view in the IDE, it's like you're opening up Microsoft Word and it's a bunch of files to edit, and that's just not how software is being built or gonna be built. Like, you're not going to be sitting there hand typing code. You're going to be telling an agent what to do. And our insight has been like, there should be an app that is built specifically for that workflow, and the terminal is the better starting point for that than the IDE. I don't think the terminal is the ending point for that, which is why we're not even calling Warp a terminal anymore. We're calling it an agentic development environment. But the basic form factor of like, you should have an input box, and then you should have maybe some aspects of the IDE. Like, you should be able to edit the code if you want to, but that's not the primary action. This is just stuff that we realized and started orienting the app around it, and I think that really helped.
Interesting. So the real estate that you actually started to build has almost come full circle, really, as you've repositioned yourself in the market as a coding gen tool, and you've gone, okay, yeah, we've got the terminal, we built that, that's what we know. Whereas probably other people are looking at that over the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and everyone is scrambling to put out a terminal app, meaning like a text-based CLI app that runs within the terminal. And we I think have a much more valuable piece of real estate as the terminal app itself. It's almost like the analogy of the browser to a web page. So we're the outer app here, and that means we can do all sorts of things in the user experience that these purely text-based apps can't do. So we got lucky there, and then we built up a really big user base. Like, we have 700,000 active developers already in Warp. And like, that's significant. Like, I was just at OpenAI Dev Day, and like, they released their number. OpenAI has 4 million, and that's OpenAI. They're more well known than us. They're a $500 billion company or whatever. So it's like, we have a very, very significant and growing number of people who like being in our tool every single day. And so that's also like a big advantage. We're like, well, how do we onboard those people into a more agentic experience?
Well, there you go. I think, you're 20% of, some of the market that they hold. And I think it's a brave thing. I think the market's big enough to go into the code gen market. But what's that like going into the market where, let's be fair, there was a lot of noise about Cursor, Claude, other tools over the last 12 months. People were posting figures. What was that like going into that market?
Yeah, so it's scary, and for other founders doing something similar, it's like, it's scary. I think it's like slightly counterintuitive, but it's better to go into a market where there's competition, because it's the number one mistake, in my opinion, that like a startup can make is building something that no one cares about. And when you go into a market where there's proven demand and competition, you don't have that problem. Now, you have other problems. We have competitors who have more money than us and bigger brands, more users, whatever. However, it's like, we have advantages too. Like, we're faster. We have this very, very different product in this space. If we were going in, just like, if I was at like the phase of like starting a company right now, would I like go into this market? I would probably try and find more of I would want some wedge into it, just if I was going to go into it. But Warp has the advantage of having been around for 5 years, having like a known brand, having hundreds of thousands of active developers. And so I think it's worth us competing. I don't see it as like a winner take all market. I think our DNA is super strong on the product side. Like that's always what I've cared about. It's just like, how can we build the product that developers want to spend their time in? Everyone else who's competing with us has like a clone of VS Code or a text-based terminal app. And so, while it won't be easy for us to win by a long shot, I'm a super competitive guy. I want us to I want us to compete and see how we can do.
Yeah, I think we even go back to the real estate story, starting off building a very different product that has come full circle that you can now leverage. And second point, going into a market where there's demand at a phenomenal rate. I think, yeah, why not? If you can try and build a better product or offer a better service to people against a shitload of cash, you might be able. You might be able.
If we're going to be able to win, it's based on that. I mean, look, we have cash too. We don't have OpenAI cash, but like we have Sequoia and Dylan Field and GV. We've raised $70 million plus. We'll probably capitalize the business much more, but I don't know. I want this product to exist. We have a very different take on like how it should work. I'm down to like do the fight. It's just so much more fun for me to be like in the mix, trying to go for the biggest prize than it is to go for some niche. This may be bad startup advice for other people, but like, I don't know. When you go for the biggest prize and play in the biggest market, like, it's just like I think that's just more fun.
100%. If you go for gold, you might get gold.
You might get gold. Even if we I think that there's a lot of big businesses that are going to be built around this. Let me put it that way. So I think we just need to be one of them, but like, I want to be the one. So put it like that.
Love it.
Yeah.
You're a product guy. You touched on challenges under the hood at Warp. For people listening that are no doubt users, very interested in what you're building, on a day-to-day, what are the challenges that an engineer is going to come into contact with? You said scaling, cost challenges, hiring challenges. They may not be direct things for an engineer, but help us understand the life of an engineer and what they build.
Yeah, so Warp is built in a pretty unique way. So we are in the client, we're a pure Rust app. So we're built in Rust. And if you're building in Rust, you're already kind of playing on hard mode. It's a much more challenging language than, say, TypeScript or React. We didn't do this like for fun. We did this because we thought we could build a faster, more performant app. And like as part of doing this, we have our own complete rendering stack in Rust. So everything from like the shader code that is like rendering pixels on the GPU to our own UI component framework, to something that handles the whole platform abstraction because we work on Mac, Windows, Linux, and we have a WebAssembly build. And so just like, it's an app that's like comparable in complexity to building something like Figma or Google Docs. So it's like, if you're drawn to that type of challenge, we have lots of challenges. That's just on the client part of Warp. On the AI part of Warp, we have a whole host of other challenges, which are like, how do you effectively use LLMs to solve developers' problems? This is like a big, messy, hard thing in and of itself, and like it's a totally different kind of engineering than the client side, because the AI side, it's all about context, it's all about prompting, and then finally, it's all about like measurement. Like, because it's a system that's got a bunch of non-determinism is in it, you have to measure everything you do via evals. You have to measure it via testing in production, and so it's a totally different side of your brain than like the like low level systems programming challenge in Rust, but it's also super fun.
Who are the types of people that will thrive at building inside of Warp for people that are interested in coming to your team?
Yeah, so the way that we look for talent, or the way that we hire, we want generalist engineers. So first of all, I don't ever hire someone based on the languages they know or anything like that. So pretty much everyone on our team has learned Rust. I want someone who's really, really smart, who has good CS fundamentals, and like I this meme about not getting CS degrees is like the stupidest thing you could possibly do as a student right now. Go get a CS degree. Like, you're more in demand at a place like Warp than ever. And then the other thing that I really care about is like your product focus. And so this is like a thing, I've written a bunch about it. I really want engineers who, as they're building stuff, are thinking through, what's the user problem that I'm solving? Why am I building this thing? Does it actually solve it? If the designs are unclear, I want people who can like use their brain to be like, oh, actually, this thing should probably not work this way. Let me not just like blindly build the thing that was handed to me, but let me make sure that I'm building something that's actually useful. Let me actually talk to users. And so, that's like a rare skill set, like a really, really smart generalist engineer who also is passionate about solving the user problem. But that's what we want. And so, we haven't hired that many people, but that's the profile.
Yeah, that level of intricacy of trying to understand your customer, your user, because you are at such a large scale, that's needed, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, like, what happens is you just waste a lot of time, because engineers who are not focused on the user they just won't build the right thing. That's one failure mode. Or they will get like enamored with the code. And this is the thing that drives me crazy, where it's like they'll be like, okay, I built the perfect code abstraction, and like I did this incredible job refactoring and setting up this API, and it's like, does it actually solve the user's problem? And they're like, well, I don't know. And it's like, then who cares? Users don't use code, they use a product you build. Now, I'll get yelled at for this by other engineers. uh, I care a ton about the way that it's built, just to be clear. Like, it needs to be built in a way that we can ship a great product with. I just don't care about code for the sake of beautiful code, because that's like irrelevant. It's all in service of solving some problem.
Love it. Good context, really good context. Where are we going with AI? Is too broad of a subject, but code gen tools, the models and how powerful they are, that will fit under the same umbrella. Obviously correlates back towards your business and some of your competitors. Where do you think we're going over the next 6 months?
So we are going more towards the world of developing by prompt. So this is in contrast to developing by hand, like I mentioned before. So developers are going to be writing less and less code. They're going to be prompting agents to do more of their coding. Beyond that, we're going into a world of developing by automation, meaning like some aspects of what developers are doing right now in an interactive way is going to be just done automated by an agent. Now, our view on this is like, it should be developers who are setting up these automations and programming them. And that's like a part of Warp that we're leaning more and more into, like letting developers use our agent to solve their own problems in a programmatic way, not just an interactive way. And so, to make that more concrete, like, if you are, we just had a hackathon where we did this type of thing where it's like, you can make an agent using Warp's agent CLI, where anytime you push a change to the main code base, that agent looks at the change and updates our documentation. It's like, that's an annoying task for a developer to do, but an agent can just do it. And our documentation is also in like another code repo. So it's really, you look at one code change, you make another code change. I think that's a really good example. Or you can have an agent that is going through our code and being like, okay, these features that were behind feature flags have been out for a year and they don't need to be feature flagged. So you can have an agent doing that. And so we want to give developers the tools to use agents to do this type of like repetitive work. I don't think we're anywhere close to like agents replacing developers, and that's just, I just, as a fact, I just, no matter how good these tools get, I don't think that's where we are. But I do think we're at a spot where agents can start to do some of the more annoying things and be like a whole new tool in the developer's toolbox. That's pretty fun.
Love that. Agents, more automations, giving devs more tools, still humans, thankfully. Yeah. And you touched on that. I know it's been a hot topic. Do you think we will get to a point in X number of years where humans are very far removed from the development process?
I think it's going to depend on the kind of software that's being built. I think for like I alluded to, like web apps or simple standalone things, stuff that's like the successor to WordPress or Squarespace. I think that's already happening. Like you don't necessarily need to be a developer, and I think that's a cool development. I think you will see people who are not traditional developers building more software. So like PMs, designers are one of the talent people in our team uses Warp to build stuff for analyzing our recruiting pipeline. And that's amazing. For like the big apps that everyone spends all their time using, I think it's going to take a lot longer. I'll put it that way. And if I were interested in being a builder on one of those apps, I would 1,000,000% learn code and learn just even more learning code, like learn like how to think like a computer scientist, because the skills that are going to be more valuable are like problem solving skills, system architecture skills. Can you understand the entire context of a big code base or multiple code bases? And so I don't know. Short answer is like I don't think it's happening anytime in like the near future. In like the 10 years, it's like sci-fi land. So who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you. And I've lifted this idea from other people from, let's say, LinkedIn, where people have shared this notion. But the system architecture, the CS fundamentals, I think those skills will continue to thrive. I've got no doubts, based on what I know. And for Warp, over the next 3 to 6 months, for what you can and want to share, what should devs expect? What should the industry expect from Warp?
Yeah, so we're just gonna keep on leaning into making the product that best supports this new agentic workflow. And so specifically for pro devs, so you can expect more features that if you're a pro working on a hard code base, we're trying to help you guide the agent, understand the agent, code review the agent. That's part of it. And then you should expect more stuff where you can program these agents as well. So really leaning into this, like, I want to use Warp to build an app like Figma or Notion, something challenging, and I'm a pro dev. And what should that experience look like, and how can we leverage the fact that we have this really unique application and layer in the stack to get developers to ship, stuff that with agents that can go all the way to production.
Love it. Keep building, as I'm sure you will. For people listening, you've heard from Zach. They've built a sick product. The finances are in place. I think Zach might be able to come in and correct me, but if you're a generalist engineer who's got a very strong product sense, you should be talking to Zach. You should be talking to the team at Warp. If you're interested in building something like a Warp and getting involved, I will also link some of the stuff that you mentioned around some of what you write from a product perspective, but feel free to jump in and add anything there.
Yeah, please. Like we're hiring engineers. And so, yeah, if you're interested in building, I think one of the foundational tools that developers in the future are going to be living in, it's a super interesting product space, but it's also a super interesting set of technical challenges. So yeah, please reach out.
Yeah, please do. And Zach's not a bad guy, as you've seen. So
that's nice.
Reach out to him. It's not scary.
No, I don't think I'm too scary.
Again, a massive thanks for coming to join us. Share with us about what you're building. Love the product-led growth. Love what you're doing. So big congrats. Well done. For people listening, reach out to the team. The likes, shares, subscribership, all of that really good stuff keeps this little ecosystem buzzing around. So continue to do that as well, please.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.
Pleasure, Zach. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Massively appreciate you listening and checking in with us. If you want to find out more about us and what we're doing, please check us out on social media. What we're trying to do at Enginears is build a community to drive knowledge sharing and experiences. On Twitter, we can be found Enginears.io. It's no underscore. We've also got a website which is Enginears.io. These links will all be posted in the description. Any feedback and comments are massively appreciated. We're always looking to improve on where we can. Thanks, guys.